really learn from you and assist you. For those that are aware, Alex will give an introduction really about himself, but my understanding of and my knowledge of Alex is, as I say, as an advocate for Chazanut. You've heard him briefly telling a little bit about it now, but he'll certainly go into a bit more detail. And effectively, the timing of this couldn't be better with obviously what Alex will explain to you, what's going on, predominantly in the United Kingdom, but perhaps a little bit more broadly in Europe, around Chazonim and the shul's synagogue use of Chazonim. And I think Erev Rosh Hashanah, where a lot of us are, in fact, even as Chazonim, are not going to be able, in Australia anyway, we're not going to be able to be in our synagogues for Yom Tov. And I thought it was very apt, as I have normally a published Coffee with the Cantors piece. Just going to get people to mute themselves here. Alex, can I ask you to unmute yourself, please? There we go. Thank you, Alex. All right. So, Alex, thank you again. I welcome your input and happy to listen as much as possible, but also happy to have a discussion and certainly share any thoughts from our end. And certainly, I think, myself, Ronnie, I'll ask you to unmute yourself when you want. Chazan Ronnie Kawadla, also part of the conversation, and can certainly play a role as someone who's been around the Australian singing scene for a very, very long time. Alex, thank you so much. The Zoom floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's an absolute pleasure to speak to friends in Australia and anywhere else in the world that's zoomed in. Chazonis is very, very dear to me. I'll give you a little bit of background. I was brought up in a house full of music, and while I was still in nappies, I used to pull myself up by the banister and listen to my father and a group of Chazonim around the piano and the family, kibbutzing, singing together different melodies. We had the old 78s because of my age, and we listened to the great Chazonim Kvartin and Kusevitsky, Sirota, Malovsky. And we also listened to people like Mickey Katz and Al Jolson and Bing Crosby, Maria Lanza, Galagerci, Shaliapin, Caruso Gili, etc. So we got a wide variety of music understanding. My first big concert was my father took me to the East End, and not long before Moshe Oisha died, I went to hear Moshe Oisha. Now, if there was a camera there, my mouth opened so wide, my jaw dropped, and I was speechless, absolutely in awe, because he blew my mind. He came onto the stage larger than life with his pianist. Somebody put a microphone in front of him. This was a big auditorium, about 2,500, 2,000 people. He pushed the microphone aside. He spoke in Yiddish, and as soon as he opened his mouth, there was a complete, utter silence. And he had everybody in the power of his hand. He didn't speak English to the audience, and there was a mixture of his own compositions and various other compositions, fun songs, and that sort of got me very, very interested. And I asked my father all sorts of questions, and I got new recordings, and we used to go down to the East End of London, which was the hub of the Jewish community, probably like the Lower East Side in Manhattan, if you know it, and the old Jewish areas where the Jews used to settle. And from then, the rest is history. So we went to a shul where our chazan Rabbi Chazzan, was Avram Rosenfeld, who was the father of Lionel Rosenfeld, who's now the rabbi of Marble Arch Synagogue. And Lionel was a good friend of mine, and we had Jonathan Sachs was also in the at the shul, so we all went to the Cheder together. I didn't go to a Jewish primary school, but you know, in Cheder we had very, very good teachers. We had the top teachers, and I learnt Duk, Chumash, Rashi, to follow my way around a siddur. We had children's service and youth minyanim. And Reverend Rosenfeld taught us Nusach HaTefillah. He also taught us how to lane. These were Shabbos afternoon, free of charge. And I had that taste, Minhag Anglia. Most of the synagogue services were from the Blue Book. Zolzer, Mombach, Lewandowski. And we weren't passive. Even though we had a choir, we all knew all the tunes for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Shabbat, Friday night services. How many Lechadadis could we find? At least a dozen. And, you know, they changed for Shomru. We all joined in, Magen Avot. Or before they brought in, you know, you did Nefesh to the shuls and things of that, the modern day idiom. And within where I lived, I could walk within half an hour maximum to probably at least a dozen shuls, which all had choirs and chazonim. So brought up with the top chazonim. All the big boys in the 60s, 1960s and 50s, 60s came to the UK. Malavani, Zev Toren, Heinovich, Herstick. We had Moshe Korn in Hendon. We had Goldstein. Until we had the three Kusavitskis, Simcha, David and Yaakov. Before Moshe came, and he stayed. 1947, Moshe came. He stayed with his brother David, who was the cousin of Hendon. We had after David Kusavitsky was cousin Taub, Moshe Taubi, and then Moshe Korn and Simon Hass. And we used to go, he started what we commonly called Midnight Hass, which was Slichot. So that was the main slichot, and if you didn't get there at 11 o'clock for 12 o'clock, you couldn't find a seat. Wow. And Hash used to stand there, and even if he did nothing, or he did something, he came out elated. It's like going to one of these blockbuster movies and seeing your hero, the Superman or something like that, and coming out, walking on air. And that was the situation. There was nothing boring. And, you know, you think for kids it's boring, but we were never bored, because we took our own services, we had our own executive, we had our own decisions, you know, Chassan Torah, Chassan Bereshis, and the whole thing was concerts. The London Jewish Male Voice Choir was one of the phenomenal choirs. All the shuls had choirs, the soloists in the choir. So when it started to disintegrate, disappear, it was terrible. There was a new regime that came in, and with no support from the United Synagogue, and slowly this was eroded. Now, your generation, this generation, say they want to go into shul and they want to come out quick. A good chazan should be pacey, shouldn't be boring, and shouldn't draw and drag out a service. The people, unfortunately, that did this were those that graduated from the bathroom. Now, that sounds strange, but they had 2 or 3 recordings of Rosenblatt farting Kusavitsky. They played them inside out. Most of those were concert pieces. So here they got an opportunity of going into a shul. I'll do it for free. I don't want to get paid, or they get paid bobkas. So they come in, and then now they've got a captive audience and they want to show off. So they'll start to do some concert piece that dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. It wasn't in the right key. They couldn't sing it properly. They killed it, and people then listened and decided, well, if that's Chazonis, I don't like it, but not realizing.
So Alex, I just want to ask you a question. So for the people that are on our chat, and I see there's people from South Africa on here as well, which is fantastic. All, very fervent lovers of Chazonis. Let's try and define, what should people be looking for? What should congregants be looking for to connect with the Chazan? Or how can a congregant leave a shul and go, oh, that's a Chazan, there's a Chazan, in your opinion?
Right, okay. First of all, it should be going around. If a Chazan is going for a job in a shul, the first thing the Chazan should do is speak to the elders of the shul and say, what's your custom? What tune do you sing for this? Or what tune do you sing for that? So be user-friendly. So there's no point in a Chazan coming into a strange place and doing tunes that the congregation haven't a clue about. That then alienates the Chazan immediately from the shul. Also, talk to the rabbi and say to the rabbi, I'd like you to help me, and maybe I'd like to bring in a new tune. Maybe you could introduce it and tell the congregation, the Chazan this week is going to sing Ritzay by Schlossberg, and then explain who Schlossberg was and about Ritzay and the meaning of it. So then the Chazan and the rabbi are connected. Then the congregation are connected, because you can put it on the internet 2 or 3 weeks and say, in 4 weeks' time, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh or Mavorach Chodesh, I'm going to sing X. So to get you to know it, I'm going to put it on the shul website.
Right.
With an explanation, something like that, the rabbi does it. So now you're familiar and people like you. It's not so much about the voice, it's about what you do with it and how pacey you are. I also believe we have to get out of this Karbach mode, because it becomes a one-dimension cloned service from brainwashed people. So anybody can come in. If you look on a Friday night service, zoom it in, and everywhere you go, it's the same thing. Mizvah David and the it's one song, one tune that goes all the way through. The problem is that the Chazonim and the Rabbonim are so clued into it. You say to them, do a service without Karbach. They have not a clue. It's not their fault, because it's the brain saying, what am I going to do? I don't know anything else. And the congregation doesn't know anything else. So it's a tragedy. So you have to make yourself familiar. You have to make yourself understood. Of course, there's plenty of things to join. The next thing you should do is, if you're a Chazan, children, very important. Take the time and say, I'd like to form a children's choir. Even if it's a young choir under the age of bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, you can still have a mixed choir. Because we in the Talmud Torah, when we used to have concerts, we used to take from the school, the primary school children's choir, which was mixed. Nothing wrong with it. And use that, because then you get parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers and sisters coming to shul, and they get knuckles from it. So you're there, you're friendly, you're user-friendly. So everything you do within being a Chazan, you've got to make yourself user-friendly. You then visit the sick, go to people's houses, do various other things. Share, say to the rabbi, you're so busy, you've got so much to do. We're a team. Let's share things together. What can I do to help you? I mean, you've got 10 visits to the hospital. Let me do 5 of them. And we can split it. How many shiva houses you've got? I'll split it with you. Or let's do it together. And then again, you've got an ally. And this is what the Chazonim are not doing. The other problem is, because there are no Chazonim, they want the big boys. So you've got, some of them are past the sell-by date, and some of them are charging too much money. So a Chazzan said they can't afford the shul said I can't afford a Chazzan. So you got Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z, who are probably the top 10, allegedly, and they come into a shul because you're paying big bucks. They feel as though they want to give you value for money. So what they'll do is schlep out and schlep out and schlep out a service. And that's not what you want. It again causes problems. But because they charge so much, they think they have to give you value for money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, certain organizations around the world have created this problem. There's a certain foundation based in Florida which took these big chazan into behind the Iron Curtain and paid them a huge amount of money. There was another organization which went bump and started to come again, which is absolutely a brilliant organization, but pay way, way, way over the top for certain people. So there's a watch them about users, and there's so many youngsters today who have the ability to sing and don't get a chance. So look for the people in your congregation and give them a chance. If you've got a youngster who's got a lovely voice, let them do an Imsmirot, let them do Enkel Akenu, let them do a Don Olam, let them come up and do Kedusha with you or do something else. So you're getting friendly and you've got parents. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about your take on the importance of a choir with a chazan, or is it not so important? Because I generally see, and you're talking about in your area, I've seen it in other countries as well, that where there's a general decline of, say, choirs, chazanis is not too far behind it. Am I wrong, or is there some truth in that?
No, I think there is. No, you're not wrong. At certain times, I think we should have a choir. And again, that is something that is important, but it engages people within the community to do something and not be passive. So there are people who are passive within the community. Put an advert on the board, or say choir meeting. You only need 6 people roughly for a choir. You don't need big voices, 30, 40, 50. The choir will grow. Find a tune that they feel comfortable with, and the chazan or whoever it is, or somebody who is able, should teach them. If they can't read music, doesn't matter. Use a tonic, do re mi. That's a very easy way of teaching for people who can't read the music. So yeah, it is important, especially I'm in the rain. See, I believe that in a life and death situation, you go to the top specialist. If it was your business and you've got a problem in business, you'll go to the best accountant possible, or somebody who specializes in something in business to save your business. If you have got an illness, you search for the top specialist. You don't want to go and see a GP. You don't want to go and see a nurse. You wouldn't see a nurse if you've got a heart problem. You go and see a heart specialist. Yeah. So if you've got a problem with life and death, which is Yom Ryan, or tefillah, because you can't do it, you need someone to advocate for you.
Yes.
So people have to get in their mindsets that tefillah is a way of bringing heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Right. For many who cannot read, cannot daven, somebody should do it for you. And then you go, hang on a minute, we don't want to be passive. We don't want to sit there like, I don't know, logs on a table or something like that. You want to participate. Okay, now I say to them, go to a concert, go and hear Beethoven's Fifth, or go and hear an opera, Nabucco or Verdi or something like that. You sit there and it has the wow factor and you come out elated. So if you've got this choir which is beautiful and a chazan which is beautiful, not long drawn out, pacey for your service, you can come out like I did when I first went to Heroisha. The wow factor, unbelievable. I feel something, I've got something out of it. So you can be passive to get something out of it. You don't necessarily have to join in. But saying that, if the tunes are familiar, there's no reason why you can't join in with the choir. Nothing to stop you. You don't have to sit there.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So have we, as sort of Chazonim, Rabbonim, have we dropped the ball in not engaging our community properly and actually building that love for music as it's potentially been disintegrating? Have we not done enough to build it ourselves?
No, you haven't. You haven't done it because you're not together. Most of unless you form a Chazon union or a group where you can all get together, maybe chop and change. If you're in a community with, as you say, you've got 15 shuls in your, or so many shuls in your area, so swap a bit, maybe like Rabbonim do on high holidays. You get a guest rabbi from this shul coming to your shul, and so on and so forth. So or do Chazon concerts between a few of you, and get kids involved. The important thing is get your congregants involved.
Yeah.
Get your children involved. You can hear whose child is good. You can go to the local Jewish school and go in hear who's in the choir, or who sings at concerts, or who's in the Jewish theatre group, or something like that. Utilize, because don't be lazy. Just utilize. So if you do that, you make yourself an important part of the community, as opposed to be aloof.
Yep.
You know, it's the problem. You have to be able to touch you out.
The European Cancers Association, the ECA, of which you are so synonymous, maybe talk a little bit about the ECA and what it does in terms of the conventions that you arrange and your role within the broader European landscape, and how potentially that could be one of the ways we could be addressing these challenges.
Well, we like to invite people to a convention. With the conventions, it's made up of top teachers that we get and a theme. So we would hold it maybe I think next year we're looking at possibly Budapest. We're trying to hold it in Budapest. We've been to Budapest before, but we're looking at Budapest. We had Prague twice, Hanover. We're going back to Hanover again. And we invite, everybody is welcome. Men, women, children, whoever wants to learn. And there are classes and sing-alongs, Shabbatons, lectures, and we also invite people to speak themselves. So if, Greg, you decided that you wanted to join us at a convention and you had something interesting to tell us all, or you wanted to teach us something, you're very welcome to come and join in, and we'll all listen. We also try to arrange for youngsters who have the potential, who want to seriously take up the role. So we have an understanding with Tel Aviv Cantor Institute, Naftali Herstik, and we have sent 8 boys so far to who have graduated. Natan Fagelman, who's now the Chazzan Rav in Liverpool, and he was in South Manchester. He's got a very good position, and he went for 2 years. Ozzy Schwartz, who's in Edgware. I'm sorry, Yossi Schwartz, who's in Edgware. He went to Turkey. Nathan Dolman, who's now in Germany. When he immigrated, I arranged with Naftali Herstik to take him, and he was young, and I said, yes, you can. We're old friends, and tremendous. That's all he wanted to do, become a cousin like his grandfather. His grandfather was Morris Katanka, who was the cousin at Prince's Row Shul. His uncle, Sholem, was David Katanka, and they all sang in the choir in Prince's Road in Liverpool. and which was it's the only shul now with a mixed choir. It's the only Orthodox shul that still has a mixed choir, which is another debate. I don't know how you feel, or do you have mixed choirs in Australia, or it's forbidden?
And we would in the Orthodox shuls, you wouldn't have mixed choirs, not during a shul service anyway. But
Why?
yeah, why? I'm not a rabbi, so I'm going to steer clear of answering that question. My rabbi is on the line, and he can always answer those questions. But I think
I would like to know, because halakhically there's various different interpretations. It's not kol isha as such, if you can't differentiate. And they're maybe in a choir room. You tell me if they're altos or sopranos, or they're women. And we've done this exercise before. So
yeah. Look, I mean, Rabbi Rabin, you're more than welcome to interject should you like, but we don't have choir rooms. I think Ronnie, correct me if I'm wrong. None of the shuls, maybe Turak may have had a choir room, but I don't
my understanding is that I think St. Kilda Shul, going back in time, had a mixed choir, and I think they outlawed that, or it stopped, or there was, I don't know exactly if one rabbi specifically came in and stopped it, but there hasn't, my knowledge, and the area would be the best place to look at. Ronnie maybe knows more than me about the Australian history.
Turak Shul also had a mixed choir back in the 50s and 60s, but that was also put to bed when Orthodoxy came a little bit more throughout.
Right.
Is there any in Sydney?
Not that I'm aware of, but I could be wrong.
Because, Ben Elton, I don't know if you know Ben.
There are progressive shuls that have mixed choirs. They're still going on today, but it's progressive, so it doesn't fit in the line with Orthodoxy.
Do you know Rabbi Ben Elton?
Yes.
Because he is he might be very helpful, because he's a huge Chazzan fan, and he's produced a wonderful recording of music of Victorian England with a choral service. Moshe Hapshel is the Chazzan, and he got a choir together and produced a wonderful CD. And his approach, maybe you could get together a Ministers Cantors Association of Australia. He would probably be able to help you, and I don't see he would be negative about it. But I think Dov Farkas might be for it, and his father might be able to help Shimon and a few others. So, or you can interpret it. It doesn't have to just be Australia. It could be the Southern Hemisphere. You can use South, and maybe make something, an organisation that you can all get together and see how you can elevate the role of the Chazzan within your part of the world.
Right.
Because you have to do it yourself, and you guys seem very, very keen. We can help you in any way that you need help, if we are able to do so, with the greatest of pleasure. But what we have to install, the most important thing is, don't necessarily go back to the old-fashioned ways. You can still use Lewandowski's, also Mombach, etc. You can still use the old tunes, but please, with the modern way things are today, don't over elongate services. People get bored very quickly. Be pacey. You can sing a couple of pieces, just one piece on a Shabbos, and then maybe one more, maybe a couple. If there's a special occasion for a mitzvah or a simcha, do you sing the mitzvah boys' prayer? Shema B'nai?
I have sung it before. I don't sing it in my shul currently, but it is something that's on our agenda to add to our.
But maybe join that in and do something special towards the mitzvah boy.
Yeah, correct. Alex, I want to ask you a little bit about your time on a bimmer. I want to get a sense of your experiences as a singer on the bimmer. How did a young Alex Klien, a currently young Alex Klien, enjoy his time on the bimmer?
Well, I started with the children's service, going way back, and then the youth minion, and then we were invited to the main shul. So I think at least once a year, or maybe twice or three times a year, we were invited by the shul itself to do a youth Shabbat. So 3 or 4 of us, somebody did Pesukei December, somebody did from Shafei Nato and Kamotha, somebody did Musaf, and then we also used the children from the children's services also to take part. So the popular tunes and the songs of the day, and that's how I first got my experience, which is invaluable. I also got experiences by going to Jews College with Reverend Brill's class and the Chazzan class, and listened to some of the my mentors, which were the Chazanim of the time, especially Avram Rofeld. If there was something that I needed to know to do with dictation, pronunciation, like common faults today, if you started doing Anim Zmirot, the kid would go Anim Zmirot, which is totally wrong, and midday, and it's totally wrong. So midday and is not and things like that. So hang on a minute, Alex, you're doing it wrong. Mizmar Shir Chanukah Bayit. I hear in South Africa in various places, Mizmar Shir, Mizmar, it's not, it's Mizmar Shir. So it's harder, but get it right. And because I was told off at a young age, I got out of bad habits.
Yeah.
It's not midday dabri, it's midday dabri and things like that. And where the accents are wrong, you can alter the meaning of the word, which doesn't make sense. And people still hear nafshi chemda in typical kids. It's not chemda, it doesn't make sense. It's nafshi chemda. Chemda is not a word you translate with an Anim Zmirot. And I'm sure a lot of people do it today, or they do hodu instead of hodo. Hodu al eretz, it's not hodo, and so on and so forth. So, yes, I'm medactic, but if you know what you're saying, it makes sense. And I was taught to breathe, and I was taught that there are commas and full stops. And I was also the experience. I was also taught, don't sing out of your comfort zone.
Right.
When you're younger, if you've only got a small range, sing within that range. Don't sing tenor pieces if you're a baritone.
Right.
Know the key that you're singing in. These are all the valuable lessons that were given to me. Somebody comes and he brings a piece of music to the pianist, and it's written in a certain key because he's got it off the shelf. Nobody's transposed it to the key that the person is singing it with, and it doesn't make sense. Or you're trying to push yourself half a tone up or an octave in a different range, where you're trying to fight with an orchestra, or you're trying to fight with maybe a loud pianist. The piano is there to accompany, not to lead. The choir is there to accompany, not to lead, unless you're a soloist in the choir. The choir is the main part of the service, and like the old days, there's 2 schools of thought. So my experience on the bimmer taught me to watch out for all little nuances. And if I wasn't shown or taught, I'd be making mistake after mistake, common mistakes, which are made all the time.
But I think one of the key things in what you're saying, Alex, is that you had very experienced, knowledgeable, passionate people who were older than you, who were able to tell you off. We don't have too many of those people anymore telling us off?
Well, this is the problem. Is there is a lack of teachers, and it worries me because when the Moshe Sterns and the Naftali Herstits and the Chaim Feifels and the Eli Yaffes disappear, who is going to teach how to take service? And don't forget, the Chazzan is actually the oldest profession. There were no Rabbonim in Shul. There were no Rabbonim in services until probably, 100 years ago, if that. Even as late as the 1940s, some of the shuls in London didn't have a rabbi. Every shul had a Chazzan. I mean, the Duke's Place, the great synagogue Duke's Place, which was the home of the chief rabbi, never had a Rav until 1940s.
Sure.
Every shul had a Chazzan or a Baal Tefillah.
I want to ask you a little bit, kind of two questions in one. So my opinion is you listen to the likes of Rosenblatt, Kusevitsky's, Stearns, Sirota, Quarton, Glantz, all these guys, and Ganshoff, Moshe Ganshoff. I don't tend to think we have that many voices of that quality in today's times that we did have in those times. And second part of that question is, what is your take on the current crop of what you would classify, what I would classify certainly to be excellent Chazonim, the likes of Yitzhak Meir Helfgott, Yaakov Lemmer, Yaakov Stark, these types of characters? Are these comparable to the Rosenblatts, to the Quartons, to the Glanzes?
No, they're not. I don't think they are. And it's not about a voice. It's about today's Chazzan, as I said very, very early on, copy. If Helfgott was, or Lemmer, or some of the other Chazanim that you've mentioned, were to compose for themselves and their voice, some might cut it, but most of them are regurgitating the old stuff. And when somebody says, oh, Helfgott so much like Moshe Kusevitsky, back to back, not at all. The nearest Chazzan in style to Kusevitsky that ever was of today would have been probably Paul Zim.
Wow.
And that sounds funny, but Paul Zim was his main pupil, and he took over I think it was 21 when he took over, when Moshe died in 1966. He took over Bethel in Borough Park, not for a long time, but for about a year or so. And then Moshe Stern, brilliant Chazzan, probably the best Chazzan in our generation, or your generation, will be Moshe Stern. But Moshe Stern is such immense and a beautiful neshama, and he's always willing. If I want to know something, I could speak to him on anything. And he gets very, very upset. Why? Because he gives advice, and people don't take it. They ask for it, but they don't take it. And he gets very, very, very frustrated. He's so easy to talk to, and he's so willing to help. Naftali Hersey, if you approach Naftali in the right way, he will help you. Yaakov Motzen is very helpful in the right way. Yankee Lemmer is very, very down to earth.
Yes, he is. I agree.
Thank
you. You connected me with Yankee, and he's been an amazing. He's been amazing to talk to. Very easygoing.
He's very musical in the sense that he doesn't wear blinkers. For someone who's a Hasidic background, he's such a breath of fresh air.
So, looking at the European Cancers Association and your earlier points around potentially looking at something for the Southern Hemisphere to to help the status and the role of the Chazzan. To what extent can the ECA do more? Why is there a disintegration in the greater European landscape? What support are you not getting?
We're not getting support from the United Synagogue, the chief rabbi. The chief rabbi, I'm going to be honest, and so I'm going to get told off for it, but it's there as a public domain. We had an ECA convention at the Central Synagogue in London just before Chief Rabbi Mervis was inducted to become Chief Rabbi. And he made a wonderful speech telling us that he wants to be a partner in everything we do and how he's excited about it and how Nusach is so important, etc., etc. None of these things really have materialized. We have asked, we want to go into schools. I mean, a program I think we can learn from is Ivor Joffe in South Africa. He has a nice program where he goes into schools and he's very, very successful. Yeah. We would love to do the same thing here in the UK, but it's a problem. There's no support from the United Synagogue. There's no support from the Chief Rabbi's office. It's very, it's extremely difficult, and you know, you hit your head against a brick wall. Most of the conventions we are going to have will be outside of the UK, for the simple reason we get the support. You know, if you go into the UK, in many cases, besides the Central Shul, which have been extremely supportive, that's Stephen Lee's shul. And Stephen is absolutely brilliant, and very, very helpful in it. And is the rabbi that was at the shul, I'm trying to think of his name, Marcus, Rabbi Marcus, was it?
I think that sounds right, Rabbi Marcus.
I think he's
South African.
Yeah. He's retired, but again, absolutely superb. Central Shul was basically the only supported shul, except Edgware. Now, Edgware has, again, because of one of the guys there, Spencer, who has put on with Jeffrey Schisler evenings of my father, the Chazzan, 150, he did last week, 150 years of the United Synagogue. But again, when Jeffrey Schisler, who put the program together, he mentioned the same thing: lack of support from the United Synagogue, no full-time chazanim in the UK. If a synagogue employs another person, they will employ another rabbi, a youth minister, another minister. Why not have them again? It's the chazanim that are at fault again in many cases. Make yourself user friendly. Be a partner with the shul. Go on and say, I want to be a modern chazan. I want to be a communal chazan. I want to help the rabbi, the shul, with their duties, and maybe do a music class or create a choir or do something like that. Maybe that's the only way forward. But you have to convince the powers that be that's what you want to do. The only other way is start as a chazan and take smicha, like some of the boys have done on the job. Right. Nathan Fagelman in Liverpool is the minister chazan, and he was a chazan first, and he took smicha and was inducted by the chief rabbi. Danny Bergson in St Anne's. Albie Chait is a one-man show, not a rabbi, but he's in Leeds. And these are user-friendly young people who have put themselves about and are community people. Probably maybe it's the only way to go as a modern cousin. Benny Rogoznitsky is a cousin in Paris, same shul that Helfgott's in, and Arthur Schreier is the rabbi. He's very, very busy with the day school, with the Arthur Schneier School in Manhattan. So I think he's a governor or director of the school, and he's busy with all sorts of things. So it does help, and maybe that's the only way to go to get the modern cousin out there. But you've got to have achdus. You've got to be as one unit instead of fighting each other. Be together. I mean, part of the problem is that the top 10, or they consider themselves the top 10, don't want anybody else coming in to the picture. So you've got your, I'm not going to mention names, but you've got your A, B, C, D, E, and they get all the work, they get all the concerts, they get all the jobs, and they look after each other. Whereas how are we going to get the young man who may be talented into positions unless they get exposure? And we do. The ECA, we've exposed many Gergely Nagradi, we gave him exposure. Listen, Nathan Fagelman, Albie Chait, all sorts of people we've given opportunities of doing concerts, coming to conventions on a world stage, and it shows because they get work, they have jobs and positions, and they're recognised. So our part to play, come to a convention, expose yourself. People listen. You know, we get people from different shuls and saying, will you have a next Shabbos at my shul? Will you have a next month at my shul? Will you have and so on and so forth? So Yankee Lemma did the same thing. I brought over Yankee Lemma to the UK before anybody knew him. Alex Klien, his brother, Shulam Lemma, various other personas. I've had over nearly 50 years, you name a cousin, and I brought them over to the UK because otherwise not have exposure.
I'm just conscious of time and being respectful to everyone's time. Alex, I want to just ask you, we're approaching Yamim Noraim, and besides the fact that our shuls in Melbourne are going to be closed, unfortunately, let's talk about if they weren't going to be closed and how a chazan would go about preparing himself to be that connected part of Yamim Noraim and really take the congregation on a journey through Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
Well, there's people today probably want explanation or explanatory services. Also, the fact that you have to sing the tunes that they're familiar with from years and years and years, because people who only go 3 times a year find it very, very important. Yizkor is another important fact to many people who will tend to go to shul just for Yizkor and then disappear. But so important, maybe pre-record, or even if you can get together and use one Zoom or one service and work out the tunes that you want to sing. You know, Rosh Hashanah, Tikva Sevum, Kol Nidre, what do you want to do with Kol Nidre? If you feel that you want to maybe put a piano behind you or a string quartet and it enhances it, do so. Why not? It's not breaking. It's not breaking halal, you know, because Yom Tov doesn't start till Ma'ariv, and Ozarua Al Dasamokom Kol Nidre is not part of Ma'ariv, and I know Albie Chait in Leeds has pre-recorded a Kol Nidre service to start earlier to give somebody a taste of Yom Kippur. So he's actually using a string quartet and bringing in the traditional Kol Nidre. Do that with Ne'ilah, because Ne'ilah you can at the end, because fast is out. So go online and get out Marif time, Havdalah, get people to join in and do a communal Zoom with the congregation. If you want to do it in Coalfield, in your area, get all together, the Chazanim and the people, and work out that each one of you can do something which is available to all your shuls.
Yeah.
One Zoom service for everyone, which is familiar, and you get an understanding. I guarantee probably the audience will be a lot more than you think, and people will engage that way who wouldn't maybe not necessarily go to shul.
Yeah.
Maybe a message again from that, or if you've got children, you've got children's school with a choir, a day school.
Yeah.
Maybe get them to do Enkalahena or Don Olam or something. And again, there's an engagement there. So people feel part of something with familiar faces, names that they know, children that they know, and will tune in and probably a better experience than they would have had if you didn't do it that way.
Yeah, fair enough.
My humble opinion.
No, I appreciate that. Alex, I want to thank you so much for spending the last 50 odd minutes talking to us about your passion. No doubt we could be talking about this for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I really want to thank you, and I want to wish you from South Caulfield Hebrew Congregation, Shana Tova U'Metuka, to you and your family and your loved ones and your friends and your community, that you should just have a blessed new year and well over the fast. And no doubt, either myself and Ronnie, or myself or Ronnie, or just Ronnie, or whatever, we'll be in touch with you and potentially have some more specific discussions about how we can maybe look to advance some of the ideas that you presented to us this evening, which have been so very valuable and so very much appreciated. You are an absolute tower of knowledge, and it would be, you know, you talk about the likes of Eddie Jaffe and these guys disappearing. We have to make sure that we learn as much from Alex Klien as we can before that takes place, God forbid. So just want to say a big thank you to you, and again, Shana Tova, and wish you all the very best.
Can I also mention that we have, I don't know if the timing is right, we have a Zoom every Tuesday. We have different subjects, or different people can talk about a particular topic they want, from 5 o'clock to about 6:30 UK time. I don't know how it fits in with you, but if you want to bring something to the table and a group of you would like to give a talk about Australian chazonas in Australia or down under, or something that you want to put to us, or the music or the traditions of Australia, which we maybe do not know, we'd be only too pleased to host you. Gerald is on our website, and Geraldine can get it, you know, you can get in touch with Geraldine Arbach and put something towards her, or just come and listen, because we have, I think, after Yom Kippur we will have, I think it's after Yom Kippur, we'll have another session of what happened, or during lockdown, what was the outcome from the problem of the virus. Before lockdown, we had myself, Benny Rogoznitsky, we had Nathan Goldman, we had Eric Moses. There was five or six of us who spoke about the problems of COVID and how it would affect the services. We're having a follow-up to that. After, I think it's after the Yom Noraim, but it's on it's on the website, and see what actually happened and how people coped with it. So that's important. But we're here for you, and it's been such a pleasure. I mean, before I go, does anybody want to ask any questions or have any points that they would like to make? I would only be too pleased to answer them. I've spoken a lot, and
so far I did invite people to
if anybody
post questions. There have been a few that have come through.
So no, I just want, if I could firstly thank you very much, Alex. I found it very very interesting to hear your ideas how to get things more engaging, and I like the concept of bringing the kids, because the kids do bring families when kids do sing. But I'm just curious in terms of your thoughts. You know, the movement of Chazanis, and I think what Chazzan Greg's doing at our shul, and we certainly both quite keen on this, is not necessarily Chazanis per se, but that modern music involvement and getting the Kehillah singing and getting the Kehillah involved. How do you sort of amalgamate those two worlds of that traditional Nusach versus, you know, we had, for example, Choni G. I don't know if you know who Choni G is, but we had him a few weeks ago, and the biggest attendance we had on our Zoom services, whereas I don't think he's at all traditional. And
but did Colin did he do mainly Karlbach?
He did like his
Was it mainly
Karlbach South African style.
Right, what about Sol Zim's books? There's some really good books for the joy of Shabbos, the joy of Pesach, the joy of singing. There's a joy series, which are simple books that some of the schools used in the UK, and they use them in throughout the States, which are very nice songs. Probably you sing them yourself, maybe not knowing it's Sol Zim. You know, the composer of Initial Bashamayim, the which was Sol, and his books are very easy to read, very simple, and user-friendly for anybody and everybody, especially children, and they are available. I am sure I could get in touch with Sol if you want, or I can give you Sol's email address and phone number, and I'm sure he could send you some books and some stuff which would help you. But they are so good, and you know, Yum Dum 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 and all the sort of la 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 and all the various other things, Shalom Aleichem and the New Chadadi and V'Shamru, and he also has done a Friday night rock service, which is very, very interesting, and has been done before, and maybe you can do part of it with various different people in your congregation, and something unusual, and make a big thing of it. And these books are they're wonderful and simple, but the melodies are and the tunes are very catchy, and it makes them a nice alternative to Karlbach. And those who cannot read Hebrew can join in with the la 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 la's and the various other things, and will feel part of something where they don't feel estranged because of the lack of the language or understanding the language. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
And if you want to send me an email, or I'll send you an email, I can put you in touch and make the shidduch. No problem at all, with the greatest of pleasure.
That would be great. That would be great. I'm sure Chazzan Greg will follow up with you on those.
Yes, absolutely. Alex, thanks so much again. We're going to leave it there. Again, wishing you Shana Tova and everybody on our chat this evening. Thanks very much for joining us.